Hello, everybody. It's Ryan from Optigo again, and welcome back to your OT questions answered. As always, Ping is here, and this will be our 13th episode, Ping.
Okay.
So, I mean, impressive. And as you can see, format's a little bit different. We have both of us here talking today, and our plan, and we'll talk about this a little bit at the end, is to do more of this going forward. But for now, let's just jump into some of the OT related questions that we've got to tackle. We've got 4 good ones today. The first one is something that I think sort of sprang out of our 2025 State of the Network report. And if you haven't seen that yet, we can put all the links around for you to go and check that out. But one of the findings we saw, Ping, was that a lot of our networks, or the networks that we observe, are still using a lot of obviously read and write requests, as opposed to the idea of taking what's known as a change of value and putting that forward. So I thought, we can make this sort of maybe a two-parter here. Is first of all, what is the difference between read and write commands and subscribing for a change of value for those that may not understand the difference between that? And then if, as a part 2, for the non-BACnet experts, what should they go looking for to change that?
Yeah, great question. Read would be what we call polling, and change of value notification would be what we call also pushing. So same thing as when you use your phone, you can go and refresh your mail application to look for new mail all the time, or you can enable notification and it pushes to you, and you get notified when you get new mail. So same idea here. You can read a value. Let's say you're reading a temperature, and you want to find when the temperature exceeds a certain value so that you can act on it, turn on air, so on and so forth. You can just continuously read it every few seconds. And then when the temperature exceeds the value that you decided, then you trigger the portion of your program, your sequence. Or you can use a change of value notification, and you can set in the device, say, send me an alert, send me a notification when the value changes by more than 1 degree. And then I can use that change of value to determine if that value has exceeded the value I want, and then act on it. Probably another scenario would be, well, I want to be able to draw a graph of the temperature inside the room. I can read it every 15 seconds. And the majority of the time, the consecutive reads will show you the same value. Or you can use change of value and just infer that when you don't get consecutive points, that the value has not changed. So that's a great way to use change of value.
And for those, now, the difference between the read and write and change of value, one of the things that we had suggested is that in scenarios, change of value could be much more efficient, right? For the overall amount, just the amount of traffic in your network. How does that difference, and how big of a difference is that?
Yeah. So using the example, if you want to graph the temperature inside a room, if the temperature doesn't change a lot and only changes at certain time, well, instead of reading, say, 1 value per minute, so that's 60 per hour times 24, whatever the math that gives up, because it gives us a lot. You can just say, well, notify me when the value of the temperature here changes by more than 0.5. And I'll give you some nuances there. Then you might be able to cut down the amount of traffic on your network, cut down the amount of processing that the server needs to do, that the graphing tool needs to do, that the device needs to send, by a huge amount of value. By the way, in change of value, you can set the threshold to be a change in the value or a change in time. So you can, and normally combined also, you can say, send me a notification when the value changes by more than 50, but also every 15 minutes if the value has not changed. So it's a double trigger in that case.
So you're still getting all the data you need and all the information your system needs. It's
That's
just
right.
not taking up quite as many packets.
That's right. That's right. And then one really powerful thing to think about is you cannot read continuously. What I mean by that, you cannot read every 100 milliseconds. That would be extremely ineffective, and actually most controllers will not allow you to do that. Okay, so real life scenario. You are trying to detect when the door opens. but you decide to read every 5 seconds. You read on second 10, someone opens the door on the 11th second, close the door on the 14th second, and then you read the next read on 15th second. Well, you
Yep.
just missed that change in the value. So that's another great case where a change of value is the right way of doing it. You don't need to read this binary value continuously. In fact, by reading it regularly, you may still miss that change of value. In that case, a change of value notification is the right way of doing it.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm not an expert, but somebody asks me to get into the BAS and into my devices and look into this. Where do I start?
So that's probably the unfortunate part, is that change of value notification does take a little bit more setup. And there's actually many ways to use change of value. There's subscribed change of value. Without going into detail, a certain device can ask to receive these notifications. You can send unsolicited change of value that requires configuration, but also change of value, you must define this threshold. As a side note, I believe all controllers and all points that support change of value have a default change of value threshold. And that's the number one problem when users, when customers, when buildings are using change of value, and you just blindly turn it on and you don't look at the threshold. You can create excessive change of value notification, and that's when it becomes a bad thing. But yes, so you would have to look at the device where that point is being measured, find the point, and then see if we can turn it, instead of polling, turn it into a notification of some sort, a change of value, a push notification. And then with that, it should include a threshold setting that you should set. So some examples, if you're measuring temperature in Celsius, 0.5 is a good value. Measuring something in Fahrenheit, 1 is a good value. If you're measuring air flow, well, 1 is a terrible value because the value that you're measuring is in the tens, hundreds, thousands. And so 1 is much too small and you create excessive change of value notification. So yes, you have to find the device, find the value that you're looking to get notification on, turn it on. You might have to decide, you may want to decide to do a subscription or unsolicited, sometimes called unconfirmed. And then you also have to look at these threshold settings. So there's a little bit, a few more steps to deal with. But again, when done correctly, you can save hundreds, if not thousands, of messages on your network that again have to rush through every device, and really reduce the amount of burden on your system.
Second question, I guess this is sort of related. Now we've talked about COVs. Are there other specific, I'm hoping objects is the right term, specific objects that are more efficient than default? What I'm thinking here are schedule objects, calendar objects, advanced service requests that are just not your general read and write requests. Are there, beyond COV, other ones that users may not be familiar with, or they should go looking to just see if they're just not turned on?
Yeah. So we're referring to properties in this case.
Properties.
So is there other properties that are very valuable? Well, I mean, again, depending on the scenario, using a min alarm and a max alarm, what they call min limit and max limit, could be very, very valuable. Again, if set correctly. So you just step back. Change of value is when the value changes by a certain threshold. Minimum limit and maximum limit is really creating a band. So temperature, I don't care if you're playing this temperature, I don't need to know. If you go above it, below it, then alert me. So those are really good properties to use. One property that's very valuable is called priority array. Priority array is already quite popular, and we're going to see that grow in popularity as these systems now have, let's call them multiple masters. I'm going to put that in quotation, but if you think about traditional building automation systems, command and control, there's one brain and it decides what gets turned on, gets turned off, what time. But now we layer on top of these analytics that want to act on the analysis. So you might have a BAS server, but you also have an analytics server that want to both
Okay.
act on the system. So instead of competing and say, well, you wrote a 2, I'm going to write a 3, and I'll write a 2, and I write 3, priority array allows you to determine which one's has higher priority. They both write into their own value, and by default, the higher priority gets precedence over it.
Very
And
interesting.
then when you take that off, then it falls back to the next one. So really fantastic property, often used incorrectly, again, unfortunately, but very, very powerful.
All right. Our third question, and this is from me, actually. This was something that I started to see towards the end of last year is people talking about T1L, the idea of, T1L is almost like super Ethernet is able to travel farther. I think it's more hardened for even more rough or industrial applications. I know a lot of people have been talking about the development of T1L and fiber optic links as really viable replacements. Well, this is perfect because I think if there's someone who knows something about fiber optic links, it's probably Ping. So I wanted to ask you, T1L fiber optic links. Do you think that these will be good options for OT networks versus regular Ethernet or serial connections from MSTP?
Right. So I am not an expert in T1L. I did do some reading, and I know that there's a few vendors out there that are promoting it heavily, and there's some early adoption of it already, and it's quite promising. So T1L, in short, allows users to reuse the MSTP wires, assuming that they're good enough. So a serial two-wire connection and transport fairly high bandwidth and fairly long distance.
Yeah. I've
Uh,
pulled it up here and I can pull this up on screen for people, but we see 10 base T1L is non-proprietary network standard to enable IP communications between devices up to 1 kilometer and can transfer at speeds up to 10 megabytes per second or megabits.
megabits,
Little
megabits,
b. Yeah.
little,
10
little bit.
megabits per second.
That's right. Yeah. Um, I don't think is really meant from a market perspective to displace new construction. I
Hmm.
think it's really meant to help with the existing sites, especially those who have some special requirements like museums and other sites like that, where pulling new wire will be very disruptive and may not even be possible. Wireless may not be a good solution, but there you already have existing MSTP wires, then you can reuse that wire and have significant improvement in the speed.
Hmm.
However, one thing to note, and MSTP allows you to daisy chain devices. T1L is a link, it's a point-to-point solution. So controllers may offer two T1L ports so you can daisy chain, but it is an
Hmm.
active daisy chain, not a passive daisy chain. So if the device goes down, you do lose that connection between the devices. Whereas in MSTP, as long as the physical connection is still there, the terminal is still connected, the device can be completely removed. And then to answer your second part of your question, in terms of fiber optics, that would be the other side of the spectrum. So
Hmm.
again, T1L, I believe, is to leverage the existing wiring that's used in MSTP, be able to upgrade the system to be much more performant and still have a fairly good distance and some of the properties that MSTP did provide. On optical networking side, I don't think optical networking, at least in our lifetime, will be replacing serial connection, the field devices. I mean, the bandwidth capability of fiber optics. I'm talking about single mode fiber for those who know. We're talking about terabits per second, right? So orders and orders of magnitude more than anything over metal, over copper. So fiber optics is already very popular, obviously, in IT, and we are seeing fiber optics being pushed closer and closer to the edge. Not all the way to the printer, not all the way to the laptop, but it is getting much, much, much closer to every closet, every floor, maybe even multiple closets on the floor. Of course, we're talking about fiber to the home, fiber to desk technology, which, fun fact, that's where my career started in before optical networks. We're talking about fiber very, very close to the edge. Fiber gives you tremendous amount of bandwidth. It gives you tremendous flexibility. The wire is actually quite flexible. It can go incredible distance. We're talking about hundreds of miles. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, tens of miles with no repeater. It also has some of the side benefits like it is immune to electrical interference, electromagnetic interference. Whereas if you run a Cat5 wire next to a very noisy power supply, you can cause a lot of problems on that wire. Whereas in fiber optics, it's free of that. But fiber optics is a little harder to install. It is more fragile in the sense that you unplug it and you can touch your finger. Now you might have to repolish it. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but it has it's a place for it for sure.
There's a place for it, right?
Yeah,
But
that's right.
probably not in everybody's OT network makeup, at least not yet.
And definitely not as a replacement for MSTP.
Right,
On
right,
a lifetime.
right.
Yeah.
This is our last question. This is actually an Optigo networks question.
Yeah.
And this was sent in by, I don't have the username, but this was a question we got from Reddit. So by all means, if you have questions, feel free to drop them on our LinkedIn page or in Reddit. It's simply Reddit. Just look for Optigo Networks. The question is, I use Wireshark, but I've heard you have a built-in traffic capture tool for Optigo VN. Why should I switch? And, do I need to?
Yeah. Wonderful question. Wonderful question. So I just want to remind everyone who know Wireshark that Wireshark really has two major components. It has the packet capture side of Wireshark, where you use Wireshark to capture the data and create a PCAP file. So you can run that on the laptop, you can run it on desktops, so on and so forth, and that creates and captures the data. Then there's the Wireshark UI, a GUI, a graphical user interface that allows you to filter and sort and find certain fields. So you can look for a whois packet. And that's where you start doing analysis in Wireshark. That's very difficult, okay? If you have experience in it, fantastic, great for you. But it's like asking my mom to do her taxes in Excel. That would be very difficult.
Yeah, I don't think my mom's doing that either.
No. So the optical capture tool that's mentioned here is a replacement for the first part of Wireshark to capture the data. Why use it? Use it because you want to automate the process. Wireshark, you might have to leave your laptop there. You have to start it and stop it and save the file and upload it to optical visual networks or visual BACnet, and then delete the file on your local server, local drive because you don't want to use too much space. And if you want to run capture regularly, well, there are ways in Wireshark to set that up, but it's more cumbersome. The optical capture tool, you download it, and it's designed for that. It's designed to sit there on your server, on your laptop. You define the interface you want to use. You define the schedule at which you want to capture, and you also define where you want to upload the packet capture file, PCAP file.
So no worrying about any of those steps once you set it up.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So if you want to automate the process of capturing data, then optical capture tool is a fantastic solution. If it's
Which
just a
we
one-off,
highly recommend.
yeah, highly recommend. That's right. That's right. If you just need to capture once in a while, you could stick with Wireshark, but then you still have to find the file and upload it. Again, if you install the optical capture on your laptop, that capability is still there for you.
And we also offer a flavor for MSTP as well, which I know can be even more difficult to capture depending on if you're even physically on site.
That's right. Yeah, I just want to clarify that the optical capture tool that you can install on your laptop paired with a USB to RS-485 dongle will allow you to capture MSTP traffic if you connect directly to the MSTP network. Also, we should mention, we do also offer a hardware version of the capture tool. So you don't want to leave your laptop there. You don't want to set up a PC. You can get a little DIN rail mounted Raspberry Pi with a capture tool built in, and you can install it on your MSTP network. Will automatically capture. If it has internet connection, it will automatically upload. If it doesn't have internet connection, it will store it there until you remove it, and you can then connect it to the internet and it will automatically upload.
Perfect.
And you can also use that in an Ethernet and IP setting. So the hardware capture tool does provide both the MSTP version and the Ethernet IP.
Right. And we'll pull up a picture of it here so you can see it. The smaller version is actually also pretty portable, so you could move it around to multiple MSTP locations if you want to, if you're on site.
Absolutely. Probably the best use case we hear is to arm all technicians with an MSTP capture tool, a hardware capture tool. When you go on site, plug it into one of the panel, let it run. And just to help you with your commissioning phase, with your handoff phase, you're capturing for a few days, make sure that everything looks right. And then after that, if you don't want to keep it there, just remove it. And then you can move it to the next site. There's nothing wrong with that. Or if you decide to leave it there, then at least you don't have to buy an expensive laptop to do that capture. I will be honest that people use the hardware capture tool for Ethernet IP because then you need a mirror report.
Right. And and with the software solution, you have such an advantage of just doing it remotely. But anyways, I'll put up the links. The links will be in the description. If you're looking for an alternative to Wireshark, highly recommend you check out the Optigonetworks traffic capture tool. It is free. The software version is free. And then all the information on the hardware version is right there beside it on the page. So please go check it out, give it a spin. And if you have any questions about the tool or the software, we can help you out. So I think that's it for the questions for this week. We are going to be taking a short break to make a couple of changes to the format of this show. As you can see, there's two of us talking now, and that we found that, it's just a little bit more engaging and interesting this way. And we are hoping to start to include more people from our industry so we can get a variety of experts and opinions as well. So if you happen to be one of them, by all means, reach out to us. Let us know if you're interested in joining the sort of roster of folks that we want to have a conversation with.
You have some good stories, right? Someone saw this thing, it broke everything, or you saw this crazy thing happen. We'd love to hear it.
We all learn from breaking things and then figuring out how to put them back together. So sharing those stories is always important. Thanks again, Ping, and thank you to everybody for watching.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.